What is going on to all my Marvel MCU Eternal fans out there, and welcome back to my channel Movie Files. I am here today to talk full spoilers of the new MCU film, The Eternals, which I saw a couple days ago. Really excited to break down this film. Again, we're talking spoilers, which I'm so excited to talk spoilers with you all. But before we break it all down, do me a favor and check me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to this channel, well, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert for when I drop new content. If you all enjoyed this spoiler discussion of Eternals, well, make sure to like and share this review. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate all the support. And again, you have been warned, we're talking spoilers, so go ahead and light the comments up with what really worked for you in the film. What were some of your favorite moments, your favorite Eternals? What were moments that didn't work for you all? And of course, we're talking post-credit scenes, so I want to know your thoughts, theories, predictions of what you hope to see in maybe Eternals 2, seeing with Star Fox. We got Dane Whitman. We got so much to look forward to in the future of the MCU, so I want to know your thoughts on that. And also, where does the Eternals rank for you in all 26 films in the MCU? Where's it on your list? Let's talk about it in the comments. So again, we're talking spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, no worries. I did a spoiler-free review breaking down, my thoughts on the story, character breakdowns, all that, analytical stuff I did in that review. So you can check it out if you haven't seen the movie, but if you have seen the movie, you are in the right place. So again, we're breaking it all down. Let's get into it. So the way I want to handle this review is what I do with all my spoiler reviews. It's more of a free-flowing conversation. It's somewhat structured, but it's more or less me talking to you all about my thoughts and like what worked, what didn't work, talking more about the MCU and what it means for the MCU. So that's kind of how I want to handle this review. I'm going to leave time codes in the description so you can kind of know the topics that we will be tackling in this spoiler discussion. So with all that being said, spoilers coming ahead. Let's get into it as we open up, which first and foremost, for someone that wasn't all that familiar with the Eternals, I'm a Jack Kirby fan because I'm a DC fan, New Gods. I love what Jack Kirby does, and it's all the stuff that he tackles with intergalactic stories about humanity, Greek mythology, humankind, creation of life. So I'm a big Jack Kirby fan, but I wasn't too familiar with Eternals. So I love that we get the kind of Star Wars-y title card, kind of giving the audience a brief understanding of, okay, we have Celestials who have created these two different races. We have the Deviants, we have the Eternals. The Deviants were first created to come on the different planets to take care of the Predators, but then as time went on, they became the Predators, so that's where we get the creation of the Eternals, and that just really kind of put me in the frame mind of like, okay, let's go. I'm ready to go on this journey, and I love that we go from that and we get our big first action set piece, which shows us the Eternals in action. We see all their powers on display, mostly the warriors of the Eternals. We see Icarus going, toe-to-toe with the Deviant. We see, our fast speedster with Makari. We see Kingo. We see Gilgamesh. We see Thena taking on the Deviants. And then we ultimately see the rest of the crew coming with that superhero pose to give us the Eternals for the first time in the MCU. I really enjoyed how we opened up the film. Let me know what you all thought about that opening sequence and if it was something that worked or didn't work for you all. But as we move on, we go from that time when they came on Earth to protect the humans to fast forward to the present day. This is where we see, and I mentioned in my non-spoiler review, we're introduced to the lead of the film, Cersei, who I thought was just such a great character. But we see that she works as a teacher. She gives information about history because obviously she's been here for 7,000 years. We see that she's in a relationship with Dane Whitman, played by Kit Harington, who we'll talk about obviously in this breakdown. But it's in this moment that we have an earthquake, and we see, and this is what I meant in my non-spoiler review about how Cersei was so important, so integral to her love for humanity. We see that in action as the falling object comes down due to the earthquake and almost kills a little girl. She turns it into sand, and that to me is when I love this character because it shows you she doesn't hesitate to save that human. She doesn't care about who sees her, who's going to question her, how she did that. She's able to go in action without a hesitation. And that's when I fell in love with Cersei because she cares so much about humanity. So that was the moment I fell in love with that character. But moving on, we kind of go from that moment to another action set piece where we see Dane, we see Cersei, we see Sprite, who I love Sprite in this film and kind of love the comparisons to Peter Pan and her being a Tinkerbell, how she can never grow and she's in love with Peter, aka aka Icarus in this case, and she, disguised herself as an older woman. But they're on a date. Dean wants Cersei to move in with her, but we unfortunately get that conversation kind of cut short because we have a deviant, the lead deviant, coming to attack them, and this is where our Superman comes into the mix, aka Icarus. He's able to, in temporary time, able to get the deviant down, but he realizes this is a much different deviant than the ones we fought thousands of years ago because he's able to heal himself. So that deviant goes into the water, and we'll talk about more of that particular deviant because it's obviously a big character in the film. But it's in this moment that for my Game of Thrones fans, we get the Stark brother reunion. We have our boy, the King of the North. We have Robb. We have Jon. And it's the only time they shared the screen together, which I would imagine we're going to get more of them in the future. Hopefully, they'll share more screen times together. But I thought it was just so funny, again, being a Game of Thrones fan. We have Icarus, we have Dane, we have Robb Stark, Jon Snow. They're fighting for the heart of a character by the name of Cersei. That's not a coincidence. I love how they were able to play that. But it's in this moment here that Icarus tells them that the deviants are back and we should go ahead and talk to our leader. Ajax, played by Selma Hayek. They make their way out to her ranch, and this is where they find out that she's dead, which was unfortunate. I did not expect her to die. So I figured that someone pivotal to the Eternals, and we actually get two Eternals that die in this film, but I didn't think that she was going to die so early on in the film. I figured that she was going to probably sacrifice herself later in the movie, but she dies pretty early on, and we get most of her scenes in flashbacks. But they go there, they see that she's died, they're grieving her death, and it's within that moment that where Cersei goes up to her body, the golden kind of communicator between Ajax and the lead celestial that is the judge and can determine who lives and who dies. That's how she's able to communicate with him. It goes into Cersei, which was a big moment there, and this is where obviously they come to the agreement that we have to get the rest of the Eternals because the deviants are back and we got to figure out what's going on. But let's roll it back a little bit. For me personally, it was in this moment that and of course I can say this now because I've seen the film, but I'm being 100% honest with you all. I knew that Icarus was behind the death of Ajax because if you just look back at that scene, just his reaction to her death was so much different than Cersei, and obviously much different than Sprite, who was emotionally, crying from that, as well as Cersei. But it was just too on the nose for me with Icarus, him being the leader of the group, and also the film played its hand where it wanted the audience to know that one of these Eternals are a bad guy. One of these Eternals are doing things that the rest of the Eternals aren't going to agree with, whether it be Thena, who literally physically wanted to kill the Eternals, and we'll talk about her memory loss, or whether it be Druid and obviously him being the first one to kind of break off from the crew. So the film wanted you to think that one of these characters were going to be a traitor or whatnot, but it was in that moment Icarus, he had something to do with that, and we'll talk about his big reveal later on in the film. But going to what I mentioned about Thena and her memory loss, we get that important flashbacks, which shows us the group, the Beatles breaking up, right? And which I thought was a great scene, and just showing you the conflict within the group, which is something I really loved about this story. It shows you who wanted to continue to protect humanity, who wanted to step in and stop the wars. As we see Druid, he's like, I have the powers to change their minds. I can make war go away. I can make, people not having food and different opportunities. I can change all that. But it's Ajax saying we can't step in. Our goal is to be on this planet to keep the humans, keep humanity, keep intelligent life safe from the deviants. So I love that conflict there. Also, I love when Thena was fighting against the Eternals, which we'll talk about Thena, who was just incredible, by Angelina Jolie. But it's in that moment that they break up. And it's in that moment, too, the film wanted you to believe, instead of thinking that it was Icarus, they wanted you to think that it was Druid, that he was the first one to leave. He has the mind control. He is probably the one that was responsible for the death of Ajax. But I'm like, nah, it ain't him. It's too easy of a plot there. But moving on to recruiting the rest of the Eternals, this is where we go to one of my favorite Eternals, Kingo, played by Kumail Nanjiani, who's a Bollywood star. We get the dance sequence. We meet his valet, which I thought that chemistry between those two was hilarious. And this is what I like about Marvel using comedy and not having everyone having comedy. Like, for example, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I really enjoy that film, but it was almost like pass the baton. You get a joke, but I love in this film, and there were moments that other characters had a bit of levity, like Phastos, and even Icarus had some moments where he was kind of, being the funny hero or the straightforward hero guy. But I thought that the way that they used Kumail Nanjiani's comedy and also him being an action star in this film too was a great blend for me personally. But I just thought that was just such a great way to implement that character. And again, he brought some really good jokes in this film. But let's go back into in this moment where Kingo learns of the death of their leader, and we go on the plane and we get the really good moment between Sprite and Kingo. And I love this moment because she says to him, and this shows you just the how they're human in a sense, right? These eternal, immortal beings. She says, I thought we were friends. Why did you leave me? And he talks about, why he became a Bollywood star because of the story she used to tell. So I love those quieter moments. Would be remiss to not bring up a flashback that happened a little bit earlier in the film. And we got to talk about this moment. It's the first official sex scene in the MCU, ladies and gentlemen, as we see the love between Icarus and Cersei, how they fell in love, how they had their marriage, and how they had to share their wedding night, ladies and gentlemen. So I think it's a pretty big moment in the MCU. It's our first sex scene, and this isn't like a Wonder Woman sex scene, which is a fantastic film, where it alludes to them going to the bedroom, taking the clothes off, and cutting to the next scene. No, we see clothes off, we see some motion in the ocean, and again, let me know in the comments because I'm going to be real with you all. I've seen my fair share of sex scenes in movies, right? It felt a little, I don't want to say weird, but I remember them saying there was a sex scene in the film like many months ago. Chloe Zhao said it like in an interview, how this is going to be a much different MCU film and have that intimacy that we've really never seen before. And we've never seen that in the MCU. I don't know if we'll see it again, but I was very surprised. Let me know what you all thought, especially for my parents out there. Did you have to cover up your kids' eyes? Did you just kind of, get some popcorn, Jimmy, and come back in about 5 minutes? Let me know how you all felt about the first official sex scene in the MCU. But back to picking up the rest of our channels. They go to, I want to say, Australia when they get Thena and Gilgamesh. And, they obviously learn about the news. We see that Thena's still having her memory loss issues. But I want to ask you all a question. The film doesn't explicitly say that Gilgamesh and Thena are romantically together. They obviously have respect for one another. Gilgamesh wanted to protect her. He'll do it again, as he says, when he dies, which was so emotional. We'll talk about here in a little bit. But do you think they were romantically together, or it was just a love of friendship, bondship, warriors, being there for each other? Let me know what you all thought about their relationship, regardless of if they were romantically together or just had love for each other. That was such a good relationship. I really do wish Gilgamesh didn't die, but I really enjoyed that. And again, it shows you the performance of Don Lee and Angelina Jolie, that we didn't see them as much as we saw Cersei and Icarus, but you felt the love between those two characters. But again, was romantic? Let me know your thoughts on that. But this is a very, very big moment here. And I mentioned this in my non-spoiler review, that this was a moment that I didn't feel like it was too dense. It was convoluted. It was complicated, but it was a lot to take in. And this is where we get the big exposition, really going in depth about the big secret about the Celestials, the Eternals, and the Deviants. So it's in this moment, Cersei's not able to communicate to the device that she got from Ajax to communicate to the judge, but Gilgamesh tells her sometimes you gotta just kind of quiet your mind and kind of talk within, and then she's able to do that. We see that she talks to the judge, and this is where we get that big exposition dump, and we basically learn that Eternals are robots. They're more or less advanced robots, and the Celestials, again, they created both of the races, but we learned that the Deviants, again, were sent to Earth to take on the Predators, but then as time went by, they became the Predators and started killing off the intelligent life, and this is where we learn the reason why they can't do that is because there are celestial seeds that are put within the different planets that the Celestials have created, which again, if they're going to do that, we can't have them do that because we want to create Celestials out of these seeds. So hence, we got to create the Eternals to take on the Deviants. We see that the judge says, it was our fault. I'm going to wipe my hands clean of it, but I'm going to have these Eternals do the cleanup duty. So that's kind of the big kind of exposition dump that we get within this moment here. And again, we also learn more about the emergence. And the emergence is essentially where the seed that was planted grows and becomes its own Celestial. And we know that there is a Celestial on Earth. I believe his name was Truman, if I'm not mistaken, or Trudot. It's the dreamer of Celestial. Correct me if I'm wrong on the name, pronunciation of the name, but there's an Eternal or a Celestial on Earth that's going to grow. That's why we got those earthquakes. It's going to destroy the world. So that's the big dilemma at hand. Do we allow this cycle to continue, or do we stop it and put an end to it? But before we move on, two things, and this is where I said it was like so much going on when I saw this moment, because my mind was spinning that all at once. Two things came up. Number one, let's talk about we saw the trailer of the Eternals last year, and the big thing that everyone talked about and everyone joked about, why the hell did the Eternals stop, slavery, stop war, stop genocide? Why didn't they stop Thanos? Obviously, the film answers one of the main question. They couldn't interfere with human issues because, again, they're not deviants. They're only there to defend the humans from the deviants. So that is understandable. But what about Thanos? So I know, as like the stuff I've read about Thanos and reading the Infinity Saga, or the Infinity comic books, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, from my comic book fans out there, Thanos is a deviant eternal hybrid. Now, in this film, they say, and again, the MCU hasn't really gave us the full family tree of Thanos. We just know that he's a mad titan and where he comes from. And obviously, we'll probably learn more about Thanos, or at least his family, because we get his brother at the end of the film, which we'll talk about in this breakdown. But if the goal was we want as many people populating the planet for we can grow this seed of the Celestial, Thanos took away half of the planet, and not just Earth's population, but the entire galaxy. So in my mind, I would think that is a Eternal level threat that the Eternals should have stepped in to stop Thanos. Am I wrong in thinking that? Let me know your thoughts on that. Secondly, and again, obviously, in that history lesson, we learned that time is not of an essence. They'll wait eons before the actual, the population grows and they can grow their Celestial. But I'm just like, Thanos interfering with that. These aren't like timekeepers. They can't rewind time. They couldn't see into the future or see into the past. So I would have thought they would have wanted the Eternals to stop Thanos. Let me know your thoughts. But then the second thing that came to my mind was, okay, we've met Celestials in the MCU before, more in particularly Guardians of the Galaxy 2. We got Ego, the Living Planet, who was a Celestial. In the Guardians, we can see that Celestials can be killed. They can be destroyed. Maybe they'll be Eternals too. They got to get the Guardians to help them take on the Judge. But putting that aside, we see that Ego put his own seeds on the planet, which actually had another seed of the Celestial on that planet. Wouldn't that have called for the Celestials having the Eternals stopping Ego from making his plans come into fruition? Again, I might be thinking too much into this. Let me know if I'm right, if I'm wrong, if you've thought the same thing, or other theories that you all have about what this means for the MCU. Does it retcon anything? Let's talk about it in the comments below. This is what I love about the MCU. It gets the brain percolating, ladies and gentlemen. But let's move on to the rest of this tour as we go to get Druid, which again, Barry Keoghan, he was so great in this film. But listen, this guy was pretty messed up. Again, this is the film kind of showing you the moral compass of the Eternals. He has this population in the Amazon of people that are mind controlled. There's no war, there's no fighting on this little safe haven utopia that he's created, but he has these people going against their own will. So that was a pretty bad, situation there going on with that character. But it's in this moment that they tell him what Cersei obviously learned, and we see the reactions for the rest of the Eternals, and they're having a debate about should they stop it, should they not. But prior to that, again, we get the main deviant comes into the mix with that. He comes to the Amazon. He has some other deviants, and this is where we get another big death. And we see Gilgamesh. He sacrifices himself to keep Thena safe. That was again, those two actors. Everyone was great, but I really felt that. And this goes back to my love for Don Lee. If you guys haven't seen it, it's one of the best, if not the best, zombie film of all time, Train to Busan. That guy knows how to be a badass, and he also knows how to steal your heart. That moment where he sacrificed himself was such a great moment. Let me know what you all thought about the death of Gilgamesh, which I'm like, I would love him to have to survive this film. Him going toe-to-toe with which should be the most powerful Avenger in the Hulk, but we know that isn't the case because Mark Ruffalo's Hulk is like the weakest Avenger if you ask me, but I would have loved to have seen him come back to the fruition. We all know there's a multiverse out there, so we might be able to get a Gilgamesh in the future. Who knows? But I really did feel that moment. Let me know what you all thought about that death. Let me know what you all felt about Cersei and her really kind of amplifying her powers when she had that one deviant become like a tree, and knowing that she is a big, character who can have some influence on this war, because again, there are 5 warriors, there are 5 like more intellectual people, and Cersei has the intellect and the power once we saw that in the scene. But again, this is where the team is having a conversation. Do we stop this emergence? Do we let the cycle continue? And this is where, they all become on the same page, say, we're going to go ahead and get things going, but we need some type of amplifier. We're going to have Druid use his mind control, kind of again like Guardians, almost like with Mantis, but we're going to use them, but we need some technology. And this is where we go to one of my my other favorite Eternals, played by Brian Tyree Henry as Phastos. This is where we get to meet his husband, we get to meet his kid, we get the Superman reference that we've seen in the trailer and obviously in the film. And this is where we learn that he has finally learned to embrace humanity after he had, terrible things happen in the past. It shows that his creations really kind of, put a halt and really kind of created violence within the earth. And I mentioned in my non-spoiler review, I want to know if Phastos was responsible with him being black. Hey, I don't mean to be, too on the nose, but him being black, I wonder, did he have some type of influence on Wakandans and their technology and obviously, all the different stuff, the vibranium? Was he responsible to gifting that to Wakanda? I would love to know that, having him and Shuri having that discussion and being like, hey, you can thank me for Wakanda and the progression of the people. But neither here nor there. I would love to see that scene. But again, this is where they decide, okay, we're going to make this device, we're going to come together, and we're going to fight the emergence and stop the Celestials from destroying this planet that we've come to love. This is where we go back to their ship. We see that Makari, which I mentioned in my non-spoiler review, that character out of all the Eternals, she had her moment to shine. When we see her in the flashback saving people, we see her fighting Icarus later on in the film. She had like great action moments, but she didn't really have the most fleshed out in regards to the conflict of her wanting to go back home, her relationship with Druid. I feel like she kind of got the short end of the stick, unfortunately. But they didn't kill her. We're going to get more of her. I really love that character. I love that actress as well, so I'm looking forward to learning more about the character. But we find out that she's just been chilling on this ship, reading books, and I guess there's, she's been there for I don't know how long. Maybe she pops in and out. She's the fastest person in the MCU in my eyes. Like Quicksilver, she would make him look like a turtle based on the stuff that we get in this film. But again, we get the whole creation of I believe it was the Unimind is what Phastos created, which is going to allow Druid to channel his powers from the Eternals. They're going to use all their energies to take down and control the Eternal or the Celestial that will be coming back from its rest to destroy the world. So this is the big moment where we learn that Icarus, or like I said, I already knew that it was Icarus, but the rest of the audience and the rest of the Eternals learned that Icarus knew about the emergence many, many years ago, well, thousands of years ago, and that was one of the reasons why he left Cersei, which makes me wonder in the comments, let me know now, where did Icarus go for all that time? We'll talk about him going too close to the sun, but where was he when he left? But this is where, again, he tells the crew, I knew about it. I did kill her because I want the cycle to continue to go on. We were meant to be put on this earth to do our job. We did our job. Let's continue to follow through with it. So we get to kind of splitting up with the Eternals yet again. Kingo, he doesn't want to be a part of this. Sprite, who's obviously in love with Icarus, wants to help him out, and everyone else wants to go against him. But he's like, hey, you come against me, I have no problems killing you. And again, he's the Superman in the bunch, and you don't want to piss off Superman. He can go and take you out in a heartbeat. So that's kind of the big dilemma that gets us into the third act of the film, which is this where we get, which I think the film personally got more emotional. The action became bigger stakes, bigger, scope and scale. So I felt the film got better as the movie went on. And I thought this is one of the best third acts of the MCU, not only visually speaking, but emotionally speaking, performance speaking. We get 3 different battles going on. I really enjoyed this third act. And this is where we kind of wrap up in the film, where we see Cersei is going to try to stop the Celestial from waking up. We get her getting betrayed by Sprite. Meantime, we get Phastos, Makari, Druid going against Icarus. At the same time, we get Thena going against the lead Deviant, who, if I were to say something about the Deviants, this was, in some people's eyes, I can see the flaw of the Deviants really not being a focal point of the story, which I'm okay with because we're meeting 10 new Eternals. I would rather this be the hero story than a villain story. And if I'm being honest, the Deviants aren't really villains, as the film kind of points out. They were sent on Earth to do a goal, and they've evolved from that, right? And it's not really their fault in regards to their evolution. The bad guys are really the Celestials, right? And how they reset life and destroy planets to build new planets. And it's such a conflict. It's kind of like that Thanos conversation. Do you sacrifice the billions of lives on Earth to create new life, or do you stop this from happening? I love that dilemma that the film poses there. But again, the Deviants weren't like, we learned a little bit about them, but that wasn't the goal of the film. And I would imagine the deviants are wiped off of the earth now, there's still deviants out there. We're going to get more deviants in the future of the MCU. But neither here nor there, we see that Thena is able to take out the lead, which was a cool move when she split him in half. That was pretty awesome. But we also see that they're able to eventually, my man Phastos was able to take down Icarus. We think that Druid has died in the fight, but he ends up, knocking out Sprite. And we ultimately see, which again, seeing this in IMAX, seeing that Celestial come from the ground, seeing Cersei ultimately stop it from growing, but just the scope, again, seeing an IMAX, wow, that was breathtaking. And again, seeing the Celestial coming out of the ground was just a visual, eye-dropping moment. But again, they stopped the emergence from happening. We wrap up the film with Icarus. He apologizes to Cersei, and he goes to the sun. Now, does he die? Does he have some other person that he meets there? Is this his fortress of solitude like a Superman? He's not dead. You don't kill Richard Madden. You don't kill a character that important. He's going to think about what he just did and maybe come back a different person, good or bad. Only time will tell. Let me know your thoughts on Icarus and what that can mean for the future. Meantime, we see that Sprite has been given the gift from Cersei to become a human, and she's going to eventually die, but she gets to live out her life. So I wonder, the next time we see Cersei, will they have, or I have to say Sprite, will they have the same actress in the role? Will time pass so much that she's going to be, they're going to recast her? Let me know what you all would feel about that. Would you like the same actor? Would you like time to pass on and be a little bit older as we see her again? But we wrap the film up with some days passing on, and this is where Thena, Makari, and Druid, they're going to go and find other Eternals to let them know what's going on and give them the choice, because the Eternals never had a choice. They're going to give them the choice. Do you want to continue to do this emergence? Do you want to stop this from happening? Leaving Kingo, Cersei, Phastos on Earth, as well as Sprite. And we see that Dane and Cersei are having a conversation about what she wants to do. Well, she don't have a choice no more, because the judge picks her up, picks Phastos up, picks Sprite up, and obviously picks up, Druid, and says, I'm going to judge you now. I'm going to look at your memories to determine if this world is worth keeping here. I love the way that they end that as they vanish off into space to get their judgment from the main Celestial. What a great way to end the film. But we got to talk about ending the film, and we have to talk about these post-credit scenes, ladies and gentlemen. The first post-credit scene, the little stinger that we get here, was pretty cool. Dane Whitman is said earlier in the film, when Cersei is thinking that the world's going to end, hey, you should talk to your uncle, who you haven't talked to in a while, to make amends with him. Well, he makes that call, and he goes to his homeland. He opens up that box with his ebony blade. He starts to touch it, and someone in the back say, hey, Dane, are you really ready for that? The camera doesn't pan, but I think it's safe to assume that is his uncle. We don't know who's going to be in the role, who they're going to cast. Hey, I don't know, Matthew McConaughey, Tom Hanks in the MCU eventually, but I can't wait to see who they cast as his uncle, as we're going to see him take on his persona in the comics as the Black Knight, which, that's perfect casting for Kit Harington. Game of Thrones, he can wield a sword, he can ride a horse, he could be a badass. So I'm really excited to see him become the Black Knight, and I loved how they used Dane in this film. He wasn't obviously a pivotal character, but the future looks bright for that character, and I'm really excited for Kit Harington, because I'm a fan of him as an actress, and if you all know kind of behind the scenes, when he left Game of Thrones, he went through a bit of depression. Obviously, when you come from such a big show like that, and then obviously it stops, and the pressure that comes with that. So I'm really excited to see him get back in the limelight. And we have some other Game of Thrones characters coming in the MCU with Emilia Clarke in The Secret Invasions, and we already have Robb Stark as Icarus. I want to see more of our Game of Thrones characters. Peter Dinklage was in the MCU as well. I want to see them share the screen in the future. But let me know what you all thought about that first post-credit scene and what it can mean for this character, Black Knight, and the supernatural side of the MCU, and, getting into all that stuff. I'm really excited for it. But let's talk about this second one. This one's pretty cool. Now, we see, again, we know that our rest of our Eternals, Makari and Thena, are out to look for the rest of these Eternals, and they come across this portal that comes into their ship, and out comes Pip the Troll, and he's here to introduce not only the audience, but also the Eternals to Star Fox, who is the brother of Thanos, as he introduced himself, say, Thena, oh, you're more beautiful in person than I've heard. The warrior there, and he says, oh, by the way, you know, he has his own little device that was inside of Ajax. So where did he get that from? And he tells them, hey, your friends are in trouble, but I can help you find them. First and foremost, Harry Styles. I've seen him. He was, you know, small role, but he was in the, you know, the Christopher Nolan film Dunkirk, and he has other films on the slate with Olivia Wilde. I'm pretty impressed. I thought that he really like embraced like this character, kind of almost like a Adam Warlock type of character, just had that kind of gravitas and that screen presence. And I thought that he, you know, fit the role as far as this kind of prince, arrogant guy who is the brother of Thanos, which again, we're going to learn more about Thanos' family tree and where he comes from, and being a deviant and an eternal, and being a hydrate. And obviously he takes on the form of a humanoid. So I'm really excited to see. I'm not too familiar with Star Fox, but I know he's had his doings with, you know, working with Avengers and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to learn more about the intergalactic side of MCU, and particularly with that character. And Harry Styles, I'm really excited to see what he does with the role. But how does he know where the rest of the Eternals are? Where did he get the piece that was assigned to Ajax and other, I guess, lead Eternals? And how will all this shape out? When will we see the Eternals again? You know, I mentioned the Ego, the Living Planet. I mentioned how the Guardians were able to kill a Celestial. Will we see some Guardians, or to say Eternals in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 as a post-credit scene, as some characters that may get into the mix in that film? I can't wait. I just can't wait to see what this means. So there's my kind of recap breakdown of all the main moments, post-credit scenes of the film. But I want to leave you all with my rankings. I'm not going to go over all 26 films, but right now, as it stands, The Eternals is my number 7 on the MCU. It's not in my top 5. It's in my top 10. I really enjoyed this film. I gave it a 4 out of 5 in my review. I can't wait to see it again, but right now it's sitting at my number 7. The score was epic, the direction, the implications of the MCU, and what the Celestials can do, and being the creators of the world. You know, forget the multiverse. We got bigger fish to fry with the Celestials. The judge is going to determine if this world is worth saving or not. So I really enjoyed the film, and I really want to know what you all thought about the film. Talk about your favorite moments, least favorite moments, thoughts, theories, predictions, you know, the questions I posed about why not stopping Thanos, why not stopping Ego the Living Planet, what the future holds for these characters. Let's talk about it in the comments below. If you stuck around to this point in this video, I appreciate you so much. Before you all leave, make sure to like the video, share the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell. That way you don't miss any of my future reviews. We'll see what the future holds for this film, because I'm so in love with this movie. I might, if the time allows it, I might want to have a live stream with some other Eternals experts that I know out there, and some other people that I'm a big fan of, to talk about this film. So keep an eye out for maybe a live stream discussion. We'll see what the future holds for that. But again, thank you for watching this review. As I said up top, I appreciate every single one of you all. Before you leave, hope you're you stay safe out there. Hope you enjoyed this review. As you can see on the screen now, subscribe to my channel. Check out my other content. We'll catch you on the next video.